Prior, I was working as an employment consultant for people with disabilities and
Big,
some other
big
stuff
change.
before that, but we won't get into that. But yeah, employment consultant.
Awesome. Great.
That's a big change, a good change.
Well, I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you what I have done and why I'm here today. So I'm a big believer that the world we live in today is very different than what it was just 5 years ago. In terms of employment, in terms of where the future is for tech, in terms of where the future is for jobs in general. I started my first company. I used to work at a company called Salesforce.com. How many of you know Salesforce.com? Oh, great. So people know Salesforce. So when I started at Salesforce.com, nobody knew Salesforce.com. Everyone thought I'm a sales guy working at a company called Sales or something. And Salesforce.com, I started in 2007. I'd always wanted to start a company. Growing up, I was born in Tanzania. I wasn't born in the U.S. And my dad used to always tell me, "Hey, Raj, you need to start a company. You know, that's the way to go, and it's going to be amazing." And I used to work at Salesforce. Great. I became a permanent resident in the U.S. You can't, by the way, you can't start a company if you're not a permanent resident. Just a heads up. So I became a permanent resident, and I was like, this is my lottery ticket. I'm going to start a company. So in 2011, I started a company a year after I became a permanent resident, and I had no idea what I was doing. My wife was pregnant. We had just closed on a house, and I quit my job, which offered me healthcare, and I left to start a company. And to be frank with you, I had a little bit of an idea of what I wanted to do, but not really. And I started hiring people as I started to grow slowly. And I didn't have any money, didn't have any funding, so I told myself, you know what, I'm going to find people that may not be that expensive, but have a lot of grit, and have a lot of heart, and have a lot of hard work ethic, and I will train them to become ninjas. Okay? Salesforce ninjas, that's what I would call them. That was their job title, Salesforce ninja. And so I started hiring people. So my first hire was a person that I met actually over the phone. He was introduced to me through a professor friend of mine. And he said, "Hey, Drew, Raj, you should hire Drew." So I talked to him on the phone. I'm like, "Drew, you're hired. Let's go." And about 3 months in, my wife went into premature labor. I was supposed to go to Korea for a business meeting, and so my trip got canceled. And so I sent this 21-year-old kid who had never left Virginia to go to Korea for a Salesforce training. So that's how my journey started. Now, along the way, I started hiring people that were very non-traditional. Okay, so I hired people that dropped out of high school that were making pastries. I hired people that were night shift UPS workers. I hired people that made a sandwich for me at Wegmans, and I just thought they put in a lot of time and energy and effort into making a sandwich, and I thought that was really cool. I hired people that I would go to Cheesecake Factory and I would try to hire the server, and my wife would kick me under the table saying, "You're such a creep, don't try to hire people." Okay? So, but I saw something in all of those people. I saw grit. I saw they had fire. I saw they had hunger. I saw they were looking for their opportunity to make a difference in their professional and personal careers and personal lives. I saw that if you took a chance on them, if you supported them, they could become amazing. They were hidden talent. They were diamonds in the rough. And we hired over 35 people like that. That high school dropout story, he ended up becoming a Salesforce.com MVP, which is not something that you can get a certification for. That's something that Salesforce.com, the mothership out of San Francisco, gives based on the contribution that you make to the ecosystem. We hired people that were making X dollars and ended up making 6X dollars in 4 years. Okay? And so I wanted to tell you this story because, number one, I want you to remember that you are more than your resume. When you apply for a job, keep in mind that your hunger, your work ethic, your grit, your growth-oriented mindset are so much more important than any degree or lack of that you have. Okay? Companies look at stuff like that And that's really, really important. And that's what Gritseed is all about. After we got acquired, we tripled the business, and we grew the business to over 100 people, and we continue to hire this type, this way, which is a very different way of hiring. Because most of the times when you apply for a job, what do? Submit your resume, correct? And somebody in HR looks at your resume, and what do they decide? Within about 5 to 7 seconds, they have to make a call. Am I going to call this person or not? They look at your resume, they quickly do some keyword searches, they scan the resume and say, oh, this person hasn't gone to college, or oh, this person is in a different industry than what I'm hiring for, or oh, this person doesn't have enough experience, out. That model is broken. Okay? It is totally broken. See, our model, the way we're building Gritseed, is it's about showing companies why you are the right fit for the job. So I just want you to remember, what you can demonstrate is way more important than any degree out there. Okay, number one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I can blabber away for like hours, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are your goals and aspirations after you're done with this program. Anyone? What would be the ideal scenario? Yes.
I've actually thought about this for weeks. I haven't applied for any. I kind of asked through the question out there to Doug. What are your thoughts? Like, well, you threw back and watch questions. Start thinking about it. Okay. So I have the past couple of weeks, and I have come to the point that I'm 46 years old. I kind of want to start in like a startup or a small company where I can be comfortable. I don't have to wear khakis every day, and I don't be all dressed up. I can just kind of relax. But I want to do my thing, and I want to do all of it. I want to go from the beginning to the end and make it work. I want to be able to do back and front. It's whatever you do. That's my goal.
So you want to start a company? Awesome. It's a great goal. Love it. Very good. What else?
Just to be valued for something. I mean, at a certain age, people sort of stop paying attention. So, having skills that are fresh and just being looked at for what you can do.
Good. Okay. What else?
Seeing some of the instructors who are like crazy talented and stuff, it gave me something to look forward to. I'd like to take those skills and do something like she's talking about, whether it's starting a company or just using these skills in a way that's going to help me financially, not just to get a job, but whether that's start some website that will bring in some revenue or an app, something like that. So
Excellent. So these are really inspiring stories. So I'd like to share some career tips that I typically share with people that I hire on day one. We sit down and we kind of talk about just what is it that they want to do and so on. And if I may, I hope you find this useful. I wish somebody had sat me down when I first. But, so here we go. So the first thing I'd like you to please remember is, what is the difference between a top performer and an average performer at any job? Can somebody tell me that? Who is a top performer? Somebody that does really well at the company and somebody that's an average performer. What do you think the difference is between the two? Yes?
So your top performer is going to exceed the expected results, like as far as what the company wants.
Okay. Yes, it's true. Yes.
I think it makes a big difference how much you actually like enjoy where you're doing. So do you enjoy the company that you work for? Do you believe in the things that you believe in, or like do you absolutely disagree with where you're working and what you're doing? That's going to make
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, there just needs to be a certain amount of buy-in, like just in the mission, and you need to be communicated. Sometimes you just don't know.
Yes.
You're just there to like do one thing.
Yes. They're all great answers, right? And I also, I'm sorry. Yes. You agree?
I would say someone that can execute, get the job done, make it themselves, or find someone
Yes.
Yes.
So you're all right. Here's how I also like to think of it. Top performer thinks about themselves. The top performer thinks about what they can do to make other people's lives easier at their work. The more people you can do that for, you just naturally start to become a leader in the company. See, most people want to become leaders, most people want to become managers, but they want somebody to tell them that you're a manager. Managers don't wait. Leaders don't wait for people to tell them that you are a leader. Leaders just do the things that are required to do to help other people. So as you think about where you're going from here, please remember that. Think about what you are doing on a daily basis to help other people. The more you can do that, the better off you are. Okay? Make sense? Yes?
Actually, that's something I'm connecting with me already from the idea that leaders don't wait for someone to declare them a leader. Since we're talking about hiring and things, I've been dealing with kind of a sense of imposter syndrome. Like, well, is someone going to tell me, like, oh, you graduated from boot camp, so now you're qualified enough to go out and do this job? Like, figuring out how that works. And what you're saying is kind of cultivating an internal sense of, like, you're already worthy and, you know, you can already do what you need to do without waiting for somebody to give you that official title of leader or manager.
Exactly.
And that's a really great point. I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Leaders see where the system is broken. See where the problems are in the system. And leaders fix those problems before somebody tells them what to do, or before somebody even notices them. And if you keep doing that again and again, over time, magic will happen to your careers. You will explode, literally. Your careers will explode. Okay? People will look up to you naturally. So please remember that. Number 2. This is going to sound crazy, but I swear to God it's true. If you don't make yourself redundant in 3 years, every 3 years, everything you know will become, to a certain degree, useless in 3 years, the world we live in. Everything is changing so fast that you have to constantly strive to be learning. So the time and effort that you're putting in to be part of this program is the time and effort that you have to continuously engage in every single day for the rest of your life. See, top performers are constantly learning. They have a growth-oriented mindset. See, they don't say, this is my job. They don't say, this is what I know. They go out and fix problems, and they're constantly learning. So please remember that. Always be learning and make yourself redundant every 3 years. Don't worry about job security. In this day and age, job security doesn't exist. What exists is how you can be better than anybody else and how you can be better than your own self. In 3 years from now, you're twice as ahead of where you were. So please remember that. Okay? Is this career advice? Is this helpful for you guys?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes?
The word redundant is throwing.
Yes.
So you're saying don't, can you repeat it?
Yes. So what I mean is, everything you do, say I have a job, and say my job is to take a stack of papers and to process them. Okay? When I say process, I take a piece of paper, I look at it, I analyze it, maybe I throw in some Excel formulas, or I scan it into a printer, and I've written an application, an OCR app that actually scans it and processes it. Well, the process of me taking the piece of paper and doing something with it, I should be focused on how I can automate that process and remove myself from that equation as quickly as I possibly can. Always try hard to build automated systems. Try hard to remove yourself. Make yourself redundant, as if somebody were to fire me tomorrow, the system will still continue to work. It's the exact opposite way of thinking of how most people think. Most people think like, oh, wait, I gotta I'm not gonna tell what I'm doing, or like, I'll try to protect myself. No. Make yourself redundant. Make yourself fireable. It's as crazy as that sounds. Yes, it is true, because what happens is when you do that, First of all, you'll be happy because happiness is directly proportional to progress. Remember that. Happiness is directly proportional to progress. The more progress you make in your life, the happier you become. Even if you have $100 million in your bank account, and there are thousands and thousands of people in Hollywood that die of drug overdoses, why do they do that? Because they're not progressing. They're not happy. So if you're not progressing in your life, you're not happy. So the point is, if you are constantly working hard to make yourself redundant, you're going to be happy in the long term because you're working hard to just progressively get better and better. Does that make sense? Okay? You will have a sense of entitlement, you'll have a sense of accomplishment, not a sense of entitlement. It's a big difference. So work hard to make yourself take yourself out of the equation as quickly as you can and automate that system. And I'm telling you this, when your manager sees that, and your manager's manager sees that, and your manager's manager's manager sees that, they will worship you. They will promote you. It's crazy. They will. Okay? I had a team of 120 people when I worked at Huron. And we always picked people for promotion that were just constantly doing things for other people, and they were constantly doing things that was making the team more efficient. Okay? So please remember that. That's advice number 2, please. Number 3. And this is going to sound a little, awkward, especially to some of the older folks in the room, but I'm over 40. And I wish somebody had told me this early on in my life. The most valuable resource that you have, more valuable than money, more valuable than anything, more valuable than even your health, is time. There is nothing more valuable than time. And if you're young, the younger you are, the more valuable your time is. See, I can't take the risks that an 18-year-old can take today. I have children. I have a family. I have health issues. I have to keep that in mind. But when you're young, you can take risks and you can take advantage of one of the greatest things ever, the power of compounding. You see, most people, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Okay? So what happens is, if you're 18 years old or if you're 21 years old, and if you put in 3 years or 4 years, that time that you put in working really, really hard and learning new things can compound over time. And when you're 35 and when you're 45 or 55, you will be leaps and bounds ahead of most people. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is not to drill in the fact that oldies like me, or 40, that like time is ticking and so on, but I want you to please remember, have the courage to listen to your inner voice, because your inner voice always tells you what you should be working on, what you should be doing when you wake up in the morning. Your inner voice will tell you what you enjoy. It will become clearer to you. And whatever you do, don't waste your time. Because if you waste your time doing things that you don't enjoy, because you don't have the courage to listen to that inner voice, or because it's hard, you will lose in the long term. And you will live a life of regrets. Listen to that inner voice. And it's never too late. I just want to be really clear. It's never too late. I started my second company in my 40s. Okay? And I will probably start another company in my 50s. And if I'm lucky, if I'm alive, I'll start it in my 60s. I'll keep going. I won't stop because I enjoy what I do. This is what makes me excited when I wake up in the morning. I feel happy on Mondays. I don't have to thank God it's Friday syndrome, right? Or like, yay, it's hump day. How many of you know what hump day is? Yes, right? That's a very dangerous day because that means time is ticking away and you only have 2 more days to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish that week. How do you know whether you enjoy something that you're doing? How do you know that? Somebody tell me? What's the best and most effective way of knowing that? Yes. Yes?
You don't want to stop.
You don't want to stop. Very good.
It doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't feel like work. Very good.
The monetary value.
You're not thinking of the monetary value. Very good. It's along the same lines. You know what? I asked myself a simple question. Did I lose track of time when I was doing what I was doing? Did I start my day and end my day thinking, oh my God, it just flew by? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you are on the right track. Please do things that takes advantage of the gift that you've been given. And that gift is your time. And the younger you are, the more valuable that time is. Please, the younger you are, whatever you do, don't waste that time. That's why our system is totally broken. You see, our system, our education system is so broken because what it does is it takes the curiosity out of children and it compartmentalizes them into grades, into these common core type of nonsensical standards. Because every child is unique. Instead of fostering who they are, what we do is we compartmentalize them. And we take away the curiosity from them. And by the time they're 18, what do? We kind of tell them, hey, you can't take any more risks. You have to follow this protocol. You follow this standard. And then before you know it, you take on all this debt so that you're tied up for the rest of your life, paying off the debt. See, in your teens, actually, not your late teens, in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s, and for folks like me who are crazy, in your 40s too, you should be taking the risk. The early on you can take the risk, the early on you can fail, the better off you are. Which leads me to number 4. Please fail. Fail as often as you can. Failure is such an important part of growth. It is, we as a society look down on people that fail. We as a society think of failure as something wrong, but a failure is one of the most profound ways to learn. You know, I was laid off from my first job. My very first job, I was laid off. I worked there at the company for 2.5 years, and I would spend about, out of the 8-hour day that I worked there, I'd spend about 1 hour being productive. The rest of the 7 hours, I was either browsing, there was no Facebook at that time, but I was browsing online, reading news, or I don't know if any of you guys know what Slashdot is. Yes? Yes, so I used to read Slashdot, and that was really big at that time. So I was just, I was just wasting time. And I got laid off, and I failed. What did I learn from it? I still remember that day, October 19th, 2001. My meeting was at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the person that fired me, her name was Deborah Ingram. Okay? I remember that. I will never forget that. It was one of the best lessons I could have ever learned. I took a vow that day. No one will ever fire me again because I won't let them. I will work so hard. I will do everything in my power to make sure this day never comes back and that I don't have to go back home and have that conversation with my wife. So it was the most amazing gift that she gave me. And I got that gift so early in life. So please, fail. And more importantly, learn from the failure. Don't worry what other people think of you. Don't worry. Whatever happens, don't worry. As many mistakes as you can make, you should. And as early on as possible. Don't worry. It will work out in the end. It always does. Because if you keep failing, sooner or later, you will get it right. Okay? So that's number 4. I can keep going, by the way, so I'm trying to figure out which is my last one that I really want to leave with an impression, because we're almost out of time, right? Yeah. So the last one is, I didn't have to start Gridseed. I didn't have to start my second company. Okay, I'm not trying to stand here and I'm not trying to, up my chest and look what I've accomplished. Okay, frankly, yes, I've done well, but the reason why I'm saying this to you is because I try to live my life based on a very simple question. And the simple question is, when I'm on my deathbed, taking my last breath, what will I look back at? Can I be truthful to myself at that point and tell myself that my time here Out of the 7 billion people that live here, Earth is 4 billion years old, and I, let's say, live up to 60 or 70 years old. It's a very small fraction of time. If you think about the grand scheme of things. Can I look back and say, you know, I left this world slightly better off than when I came in? Did I help other people? Did I help their families, community? I try to live by that, and I encourage you to think about what your legacy is going to be. I encourage you to think about what you're going to leave behind for your children and their children, for your family, for your community. And I encourage you to make decisions on a daily basis, especially at your work, because you are an example for your family, for your children, for your loved ones, and inspire them to do the right thing and help other people. See, you look at when people that are highly, highly successful in this world, financially, professionally, personally, and so on, those are people that have typically impacted a lot of people, a lot. So for example, a musician engages with a lot of people, right? Someone crazy like Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook, right? He's engaged with 2.5 billion. Well, or Bill Gates, right? Just think about it. The more people you impact, the better off you will be. And do it with some kindness, because kindness will breed happiness in your life. Okay? So think about where you want to be when you're taking your last breath. And I don't mean to sound melodramatic here, but sometimes in life, you know, you have to think about these things because we are dying every day. Every day we die. And the question for us is, what are we going to do to help other people, to inspire our loved ones, to do the right thing? So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Right up. So I'll just say this one final thing. I just really want to reiterate, I started this conversation saying I'm so inspired by you all. Okay. What you do is hard. Having full-time jobs, coming here, and families, it is hard to do what you do. And you've inspired me. I will tell your stories. I hope to meet you guys again. You know, if there's anything that Gritseed or I could do for you, you know, Jesse and Doug have my, send me an email, raj@gritseed.com. That's my email, and they can also send it to you. If there's anything I can do to help you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? Great. Thank you. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Doug. What are we learning today?
We are going over how to convert a wireframe to a React app. I guess I'll get this set up then. Okay, cool. So yesterday we talked about React at a kind of a lower level. We got into some of the weeds with implementation details, what some of the various terms meant, like component, prop, state. Today, though, we're going to take a step back, kind of look at it from a higher level, because what yesterday doesn't tell you is how to actually make a React app. I mean, it tells you how to make a React app. It's like, okay, but how do I start deciding how to make this React app? Especially people who have like wireframes from their capstones, you might be asking, okay, well, how do I go from wireframe and build this in React? So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm just going to use that basic to-do app I built yesterday. Let me find that link because I've lost it. And we'll wait for this to load up. So I don't have any wireframes prepared, so I'm just going to take some screenshots of the app, and I'll open up in Google Drawings, and we can go through how you would do it with your own wireframes. All right, give this a little bit to load. Fire up the screenshot app. I will make a reminder myself to start the dyno tomorrow before class. Okay. So, step one, get our wireframes. Usually you'll have this step already, but I'm just going to start with this one. And I will save this in other, set of pictures, wireframes. Okay. Then I'll take another picture. Ideally, your wireframes, I mean, you know wireframes already. You just want to show every bit of functionality in your app, different states of it and such. It's especially more important with React because we need to map out exactly how React will handle different states of the app. So you definitely want to get as detailed as possible. Another one. Let's see, we'll create one with a task in it. Let's see. One more. And there we go. Okay. All right, so let's start with, oops, not that one. Oh, yeah, let's start with our, let's see, I'm going to insert an image from our computer. Go to pictures, wireframes. Start with the first one here. Cool. And I'm going to change the window size if possible. Nope, that's fine. Oh, wait, here we go. Efficient. Okay, cool. So let's see, I'll make this full screen, minimize this. Okay, that's as small as that gets. You can go down there. All right, so we have our app. So first part is we want to identify parts of our app that we have to build. So we're going to use two different, different colors on this. So we'll say top level components. These are components that contain other components. we'll say they're going to be a black. So we'll just draw a black rectangle. Around our app. Cool. Can I make this a little bit thicker? That might make sense. Oh, here we go. Cool. So that's represents our top level app, our app component, for example. If you remember back to Create React App, they had everything inside app. This would be represented by this black box. So next we want to figure out, basically we want to go down our component hierarchy. So what would be next? Okay, well, we have this header bar. That has to be a component, right? So we can make another square. Transparent. Let's say these colors are going to be blue. These are also presentational components, but they could have props, they could have state. They're just inside the main app container, and that's what's important. So we got to draw a couple of these. So add to do button is going to be one. It'd be nice if that would default to transparent. And then need another one here. Oops. So we have this form. These should be blue, not black. And if I'm going to make that different color blue because that looks kind of like black, a little bit lighter. Usually when you're working on these, the idea is to have them be as clear as possible so people can like see at a glance what you're thinking. So in this case, this is just what's shown on the screen. So that's good. You can also show where things are going to be. So we know that we want a list of to-dos on the right side of the screen. So we can just throw that in there now. Cool. OK, so this is our first wireframe done. So now you're going to want to document this a little bit, just to make sure a key for your color. So we're going to say, select text this time. Let's see. Change the color to match this one, so black, top level component, and then light blue. I might have to select that and change it. Blue is mid-level component. By that, I mean just could contain other components. Oh, I see. That just made that. OK. Excuse me. Back to black. OK. There we go. And that's the basics of mapping out what components you'd want to see on your wireframes. So basically, if you to take your own wireframe, you'd want to look at it. You'd want to identify parts of this like I did here. Say, hey, OK, this whole thing that just has to be an app. So you just basically want to document, or it has to be a component. These blue parts, those are also components. basically you just want to make sure you make a note of everything on your wireframe that you think could be a component. Cool. So next let's do a more detailed drawing. I will create another drawing. This top bar is really getting in the way here.
Alice, can I interrupt you for 1 second? So
Yeah.
I'm a little confused because to my mind, I would start it out by drawing
Yeah.
my app. So, but you seem to be like going from, is that just for the purposes of this class, like going from what you've already done to, like, what is your process, I guess is the question.
So I took a screenshot of this app, but that's because I don't have wireframes for the app.
Okay.
So imagine this is your wireframe,
Okay.
No screenshot.
not a screenshot.
Right.
So
Okay.
you want to look at that and you want to take that wireframe and build it out as React components.
Okay.
So what this is doing is taking your screenshots and documenting, so you have a list you can go through and like check out things. Okay, hit this component, hit this component, hit this component, and know that you've built your entire UI.
Okay.
Also, it helps you plan out your code better. So you can say, okay, I have a nav bar here, so that means I need a nav bar component somewhere.
Okay.
So I know I go over a couple of you how to like set up the file structure for your projects, but this is going even deeper. This is specifically how to set up the UI
Okay.
for your app. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cool. Take care. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so that was yesterday, kind of. I can pull up some code real quick just to show you a example here. Let's see. Close folder. What am I doing? Opening a folder? That's fine. Okay, so let's look at app here. So do you remember, okay, last week Mac talked about JSX a little bit. So JSX, you have a component at the top and then inside are components. Then inside of each of those components will be more components. So that's basically the component hierarchy. You have one top level component, which was represented by that black box. And then you have other components underneath it that could also contain components that were represented by the blue box. So the component hierarchy is just saying, hey, this component needs to have these components inside of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, yeah. So, right. So, I mean, even though app is at the top, app's not very big. It's just a container. So theoretically, you could reuse it and put anything you want inside of it. So you could create like, for all your projects, you would just have an app container that you use in all of them. Okay, let's see, back to this guy. Let's see, I will. Really inconvenient that that's there. Okay. Well, insert the next one. Okay, let's look at this guy. So this is a little bit more complex. This one, we can, let's see, we'll draw a black rectangle around it. Then we'll draw our blue rectangle. Oops. I'm in selection mode. That's a text box. That's a rectangle. Okay. And that. Let's change the colors real quick. Blue, blue, And I guess for completeness sake, I will draw this one here, just because it's on the other one. Okay.
What's that box? That last box?
That last box is where our to-do list is going to go.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. So in a case like this, we have it changed a little bit. So that means the button is gone and now this form is here. So when something like that happens, that's an example of state. So in this case, we can say the form's visible. And that's our state. So let's make another box over here.
You said that's our state.
Yeah. Yeah. So state is anything that causes your component to change somehow. So let's see. Write this, and we'll say state. And we can draw arrows. That's not an arrow. That's an arrow. And we can edit it. Oops. Oh, thank you. State. We'll say form is visible. Then we can put true or false. Yeah, so it's one component that shapes the change within it. So what this means is inside of our mid component, we have two different components. So the button would be one component, right? And then this form would be another component. So what we can do is we can define another level in our key here. That's what that word is. Yeah. Right. So let's say these are, we'll do green. Let's see, component, we'll say not mid-level, we'll call these child components. Well, they're all child components, I guess. Say components affected by state. So in this case, we need to make a green rectangle around our button here. As soon as I figure out where my colors went. They're back.
Are you working between two screens?
I am, yeah. So I'll go back to the other one in a second, sorry. I just want to make sure that both of these are kind of in sync with each other. So we say here, this is one component, this green rectangle. I will make that bigger. And then we can go back to the other drawing here. And we'll draw a green rectangle around this component.
Oh, so
Exactly. I'm sorry.
one screenshot every one state from the form is invisible, and then the other screenshot every one state where the form is visible.
Yep, 100%. It's so much better if you come to the conclusions yourself. Now you're not going to forget it. If I can't sleep, you can't sleep either. Okay, so here we can show our different states. I also want to add another thing to our key. At the end, after class, I'll collate these together, so I have the key on all the screens, but I'm just going to draw it on the first one for now. We can also say things that are form components. So these are things that take user input and maybe they cause something else to change, maybe they don't necessarily. We just got to keep an eye on them. So you know when you're building your components, you know that, hey, I got to put an input here. So this checkbox is a form component. I'm trying to get this small enough to show inside the rectangle. Really being uncooperative. There we go. Cool. That would say red is form components. Those are components that are accepted from the user. I mean, if you want to get real technical, buttons are also kind of form inputs because, you know, the user clicks on them, but you don't really have to think about them that way. If it's helpful to you, you can. So we have more form components. We have these three. So I'll draw a red rectangle around each of these. And I'm sure there's better tools out here to do this. This is not my job. Usually somebody else, usually the UI person who designs the wireframes, will also kind of can collaborate with the developer to build out these wireframes. I'm sure they have all sorts of nice tools for that. So if I come across any of those, I'll definitely let you know, because this is a little bit tedious. And one more. Cool.
When your box is still selected,
Mhm.
it'll automatically drop another box.
That is a fantastic idea.
There
Yep.
you go.
Good call. Good call. Okay. So I'm also going to drop a red box around these buttons down here because these buttons are part of the form, more or less. They basically say whether you're going to save or cancel. Whereas the button on this page isn't really part of the form. It's kind of just its own thing. That just toggles the state of the form. Yep. Cool. Okay. Let's look at, I think this is good for this one.
So as far as what we'll see, what we're supposed to see
Mhm.
in this page level, so this will be the other screenshot that we see first, and then when we click on that, so this is the one that we see first.
Yep.
And the page goes, you click on the add to do,
Mhm.
and then it shows you the other two.
Right. Okay. Yep. Let's see, so let's go to start another one. All right, so this one, we're going to say, let's see, upload. Next one in line, got that one already. Let's look at this one. So this one is like what would happen if you added a to-do, but you didn't have the to-do form on the left open to add a new to-do. So that's a good point. You also want to label these as what kind of state the UI is in as you go through and make these charts. Cool.
So we're gonna start with black.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I can skip through this at this point if you want. I mean, it's everybody understand what I was doing with the black and the blue check boxes. Cool. But yeah, so if you're doing this yourself, you'd want to start with that and add those in. For brevity's sake, I won't add them in now. Okay, somehow Discord is running in the background. Give me 1 sec. So you can just do. Nope. Okay, there we go. No more interruptions. Okay, so this one we have something, we have some more state to show, right? So now we have a checkbox, or we have a to-do in here. So we're going to draw this in our green component, or a green box, to show that, hey, this is state now. And we're going to make a note. Let's see, so state, let's just say, show to-dos. So it's not only show to-dos, it's show, really, it's rather to-dos exist. Because we didn't have to check anything to show the to-dos, they just had to be there, and then it shows them automatically. Yep. So we also have these buttons here, so we got to make sure we get components on the inside for that. And we'll make that red. So this is an example of where you can get as complex or as basic as you want. So this, here, I'll zoom in on it. So as the page gets bigger, the image gets smaller. Can you see this here? Okay. So this card is one component, but it has all this stuff inside of it. If you kind of see closely, there is like this header here where this button is, and this, that could probably be considered a subcomponent of the card. Or like this display thing here, so due date, that's a presentation component. It's not an input, but it does show this time here, which will change based on other user input, like state that's saved in the card. This completed thing is another thing that also will modify state of the card. So if this was a pre-built component that you got from somebody else, then you could just put it on here and you could like make a list over here and say, hey, this is a component. I got this from such and such. So we're going to, if it's helpful, I can do that for you. Or we, in this case, we can act like we already have this component built. Do you want me to, oh, Anna. We'll go over that in a bit. Yeah, let me finish this part up first. If we don't have time today, I will talk to you after class. No, I mean like, would you like me to show as an example going through this one component here and making it like a wireframe and then going through and showing the rectangles around it?
Well, let me just ask you, because when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing like your hierarchy of information visually is not clear, so I'm thinking you're going to have at least 2 more boxes in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you basically understand how it's going to work.
And those are gonna be, subcomponents.
Right.
Oh,
Yep. And then they're just form components because they show user in. Yeah. Okay. You know, maybe I shouldn't call them form components because there's an actual component called form. What's the better word? User input component, I'll call them.
And then if it's not in a form, you call it like children. How about children?
Yeah, so it's children, or the green one specifically are components that are affected by like the state inside of it. Yeah, not like a static component. Okay. Call this user. All right. So the final bit we have to show is basically what happens when we click this edit and delete button. Or rather, there's a little bit more to that. We can show the next screenshot I took is what happens when you click edit.
I would say for the sake of the recording, we could go ahead and do the red frame.
Sure. Okay, how do I make this drawing bigger? There we go. Okay, so we'll draw a red box around here. Draw a red box around here. Whoops. Let's copy and paste. And so you'll do around those two as well. And also, this, how's that look, Dana?
So I said 2 boxes, but you've actually done 4.
Because these are the separate sections, I guess. Yeah, you can if you want to. Which 2 were you thinking of, Dana?
I was just thinking a box to go from show completed task all the way down to test, so 1 box for that. And then the second box would go from the word task all the way down to completed. But I see what you mean, because completed is actually, that's a checkbox, so that's a form element.
Yeah.
By itself, right?
Yep.
And then task, task is the header, and then you have the label and the timestamp.
Yep.
So that's why you have that. But what about the show completed task?
Oh, so that's just the window is too small, so I couldn't drag this down effectively. That's outside of that area. Yeah. So this green component here that shows all the states, that can stretch down like that. And there should actually be another green box inside of this one. Like that. So, I mean, so there's the list, which shows all the to-dos, but then there's also the to-dos, which have its own state that changes based on what gets passed to it.
What appears in that green box is going to be determined by whether or not I have that box, that checkbox check that says show completed task.
Nope. So you're close. So that would only, you'd have to show a relationship between this completed checkbox and this show completed tasks.
Oh.
So like, let's see, I'll draw it. So say we'll say, I think so, yeah. So in this case, we can say, put another word in here for state. It's going to be completed tasks, show or hide. So that would belong to this here. I'll draw another green rectangle around that. Well, no, that's a red rectangle. Doesn't have state other than the checkbox. I guess I can't select it anymore. Cool.
Okay, but I have another question.
Mhm.
How did that note get in there to begin with, the one that says, task, we got that in there by clicking on add to do?
Yep.
Okay, so we click on add to do, we create the note, timestamp, so it's in there, and then when we check completed, we can show it by clicking on show completed task. What happens? Okay, never mind.
Nope, you're right. All through there, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is basically for this screenshot. So the last screenshot I had is what happens when you click edit here. Delete is pretty simple as far as it does. It just removes it. So you would go back to looking like, if you only had one text box in the list, you'd go back to looking at like, not that one, but this first one, basically. Just have this form with an empty list in there. So if we create a new drawing here. Okay, so let's see, insert our image. Should be this one. Yep. Okay. So this one is an example of what happens when we click that edit button. So in this case, see, we want to show our green box around here. Our green box. And we can draw our red boxes around these form components. One more for these buttons. Okay, so basically we see our forms back, but we can see there is now data in here. So we can indicate that we have clicked the button. Let's see, text. State. Click. Click. To do. Edit. Button. So in this case, this state doesn't belong to this component or really this component here. This state belongs to, and I'll draw the box back in here because we didn't do it last time. The big component around both of these. So what does this mean? This means that in order to, you can't like, okay, so I can't say can't because there are now ways you can do that, but you shouldn't pass state between children. You should pass state up to your parent prop that contains both of your children that you want to get the state from one child to the next child. So you don't want to have state being passed from children, child to child. So in order to pass state from one child to the other, you have to indirectly pass the state from your first component to the parent, and then the parent transfer that state down to the second component. Yeah. So basically what this means is, remember this, let's see, this black rectangle we drew around all of these? We can say, hey, wait a minute, how do we get our state from this form, this list here, back over to here? So you can say, oh, I guess we missed the component. So now we can draw a rectangle. Green rectangle shows it has state. Make that a bit bigger. Now we know, cool. So there isn't just the presentation component and then our nav bar and then our form button and then our list on the right side here. There's actually another component that has to sit between our main container and our list box and our form that can pass the state between our form and our list box. So that's kind of illustrating why it's important to drill down as much as you can, because otherwise you might figure out that, hey, you missed something somewhere backwards along the way.
Alex?
Yeah.
So, the top level function, is that automatically a parent function or a parent function?
So a parent is just a component that has child components. So like grandparents. So like you could have your parent, but then your parent also has their parent. So, yep. A parent is just a word for the component that contains the component you're currently looking at.
Could you go back to what you were saying before the question about you don't pass between children? That I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So you fill out these text boxes and nothing changes until you're done.
Right.
So I don't know, when you were drawing the other box on it, I kind of lost at the end of that.
Was it on this image or this one?
Yeah, where you just drew in that new box.
Okay, so that was on this one.
Yeah.
So I drew in this green box. Okay. I can whiteboard that if it'll be helpful.
Yeah, that might be, because like somewhere along the line, I didn't follow you, but I'm not 100% sure what.
We need this.
Yeah, because Jeff used to give us
If you remember
wireframes.
from yesterday, I wrapped all my components in div tags.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's pretty similar to that. Yeah, this is just helping us define where those divs should be.
Okay.
Okay. So say we have a component A. And component A, let's say, is say list of names. One, two,
erase this. Okay. Component B. And this is going to be our form. So we're going to have our name text box. And we're going to have our submit button. So both of these have internal state, right? So our state here is basically going to be represented as a JavaScript array of names. So name.
You can pull that forward a little, I can't. see
Sure.
behind you.
Yeah.
Is everything you see there?
Okay. Right. So component A has state of our names. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, commas, so on and so forth. So our state here is pretty simple. It's just a list of names. We can represent it by this array. Component B's state, this is going to be, basically it's just one thing, and that's going to be our, make it a simple object, and it's going to be our name. Okay. So currently these two states are connected. And we remember prompts yesterday. You could like find a component like this. Say name component. And then inside that we can say this or say new name. And basically that was, we would give it just a string with a name in it. This part here is a prop. It sits inside the component between your opening angle bracket and your closing angle bracket after your component name. It basically, props is how we send things into components from a parent. So that is the typical way that we would need to send component B to component A. But since these are siblings next to each other, we can't really send a prop from component B to component A to add the new name. So instead, what we have to do is we need to draw a parent component. Right? So now, instead of these two states belonging to component A and the state to component B, these states are now part of the parent component. And what that means is when component B needs to update component B can say, usually you would pass like a function in as a prop from the parent component. That function would be what updates your state in the parent. So component B would say, hey, my new name, it would send this up to here. This would set the parent state. Next, the parent would re-render itself. Basically, re-render is just what happens every time you update data in a component. It just re-draws everything. So that means it sends new props back down to component A. So as long as component A accepts the prop, let's just say, I'll call it new name. That's fine. We can say This goes into here as prop.
Question for you. When you created that component, that new component around component A and component B, did you give it a name?
I did not.
Okay.
We'll just call it parent component. How about, does that sound good? Parent. Sorry, I'll. Let's just wait. Okay. Parent. Okay. Yeah. So basically, all this means is from component B, we can set the state in the parent, and then the parent can pass that new state down to component A as prop. We actually want to reflect a change. So that's essentially what's happening. So we can take pictures of that after, I guess. I can slide it over, I guess.
Just put an X through that arrow to remind us
Oh,
that
yeah.
we can't pass the information between.
No.
Now we can.
Okay, just to get what I trying to understand what's happening before this.
Yep, no problem.
So you kind of like created two components. That's what you're saying.
Yep.
That you're passing on to the parent.
Yep.
And then the parent is meeting wherever minor
So it's close. Every component renders itself, but what parent does is gives you a place to store state that's essential to both children components. So when component A tries to render, component B tries to render, they can both get the state that they need to from the parent.
Oh, so
Because-
the information.
Yeah.
Information.
Exactly.
And the only reason we had to create the parent in the first place is because we were trying to get information between component A and component B, but because they're children,
That's siblings.
because they're siblings, we can't do it that way, so we had to create the parent because the information has to go through the parent. Otherwise, if we weren't trying to pass information between the siblings, then we would not have needed the parent.
Yep, exactly.
So it's like an association class.
Sorry?
Like an class or like association class.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's how we like to do that. That's sort of fine. I'm a big fan of boards are okay when you really understand all that stuff. This is a convention that I use similar to this, but that's because I understand that convention. Everybody in my company understands that convention. If you have ways to improve upon that, you're more than welcome to use it. Any changes on that. Yeah, I'm not the authority here. I'm not
Do you have to give it a specific command, like pop or push to get it back to the array?
Nope. So,
It just does it?
yeah, basically. So what you'd have a function that is called, there's a function called this.setState that you call inside your parent component.
Oh, okay.
I kind of had that in
Right,
one of the
right.
class yesterday. And that's what this is. You would give the updated state from your child component, and then you say this.setState in the parent.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions on this?
What do you need to pass into? You just need to pass the name to the parent.
Yeah. So you would say like inside of prop for this, you could say if you're doing it like this, we'd say sorry, just go over here because I have reach. Go ahead. A. Let me say new name. Say further brace. So further brace is how you remember evaluate JavaScript inside JSX. And then you say this state dot on the new line here. Doesn't have to be on the new line. I ran out of space. No, I can erase things. This is
Mhm.
technical functioning. This dot state dot new.
Oh, yeah, but I'll take a new one now.
And basically, that's how you pass the state as a prop to component A, and then this is how you access the state inside of component. You use this dot state dot into the property. Yeah, it doesn't just hold properties, it also holds like stuff that the component itself needs.
Oh, so you're not,
Like, sorry.
no, I was gonna say you're not giving, I'm thinking of it as a function. The component. And I was just like, I mean, I thought you were just passing it to arguments, so like, as a function that you pass it to the rest.
Oh yeah, no, it's not quite a function. It's JSX basically, and then remember HTML has like image tags, and they have like a source, and you pass it equal sign, and then you say the source of your image. So that's kind of like what a prop is. The prop would be like that source equals and then the value. And then basically when that component that you're passing the prop to renders, it can get the value of your prop. So component A in this case would be able to get the value of new names when it renders itself.
Yesterday, you say that when we have the component that we're passing to the big, is that, so it's not like the information that I like in grade, it's more like we're passing the visual components or the, what?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So that's why you don't call it like a function with arguments. It's standard hash. And you use JSX because JSX represents the way you get
Because that component contains HTML.
the component JSX renders
Stage.
So kind of back to your point about saying stuff that this component needs. Not very clear, I know, sorry. So by stuff that component needs, I mean anything that controls how the component moves. Yeah, so colors, for example. You can say a component has an internal state current color, and that would just be what you read that state current, say this is that current color inside of the style tag. And that was the color of the state, or color of the component. And that doesn't necessarily have to be passed to it from a parent component. That can just be something that is using logic inside itself. Okay, this was a lot. Let's take a break.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry about the nightmares and what you have about
Well, it's not so sad, but does anyone feel like all the stuff we learned in the beginning is now kind of, it like supersedes a lot of what we learned before?
All of it, where you did one at a time.
Yeah, so this is why it's a framework. So frameworks take the stuff that before you had to do manually, and it makes it so you can do some of that stuff automatically. It takes a lot of it abstracts. Ways to focus on high level development, like saying what something look like, or high level logic.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. It's just, wait a minute, I thought we did it this.
Yeah.
The code camp.
What I like about that is that it's teaching us how to put our code in all the digestible chunks. And then we put like coding in between all that, just to kind of put it together, and then what we don't need, we just take that component or that chunk away.
Yeah. That's definitely a big benefit of it.
Still gotta learn how to.
So you're going to take that and make that into an app based on the wireframe?
Yes, that is going to be where we're going to that.
I already submitted the assignment that we did yesterday.
I think I'm gonna have to see on that.
So
I get how
So
it's
just,
just my
so just,
Sure. Okay. So remember I told that I'm going to show you how to fit earlier. Okay. So I finally got it. I was having trouble getting it. For some reason, I finally got it to GitHub. Yeah. It's a little Hello World app. It goes in there.
It is, it's like everything before, like they were saying, was JavaScript and arrays and now it's kind of like, okay, we're still using.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're using the JSX, which
So the source, SRC.
but it's like, okay, we're doing that.
I look at formal reporting. Or, yes.
Is this everything that you just?
So if you look at, so I have an instructor up there, line 13 or so. Yeah. So constructors is basically a should have one run first time when it gets rendered and it doesn't run anything. So this is like do setups. So if you look down, let's see, line 15 or so, I set it full state. So that's where I want my state to look like. My green things. So I get one.
So what's an example of like how?
Oh, so codesandbox.com.
Oh.
That's like specifically set up for React.js and such. Yep. Okay. Oh, I guess I just bring it to GitHub so you can move it to client. So maybe just click on create sandbox and just let you do it without needing to sign in. Yep. So this basically is an environment that's like Create React app, except it's always running, and it's just the source file, so you don't have to worry about like starting the app yourself. Did you reset the index.js?
That's probably before.
So don't you reset index.js? So we're going to want to create a new file actually. Yeah, and then we'll copy it into that. So put in the source file. I think there's like a new name. Let's go. Yeah, that's fine too. Yep.
So basically, within this first people, define all of this, which looks a lot like HTML. So mentioned JSX, which label X would write what looks like HTML, but it actually JavaScript would like sublet.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so we're like safety component.js and match the other file.
and this is what this
Also, for these, it's important to use camel case because I expect to see the uppercase first letter when you add your component into other JSX. Yep, just like that.
Call, we can call it first component. So you just say
Perfect.
first.
Mouse over that classic details has a yellow squiggly there, kind of like a line. code, line 12. What does that want? Can you click that? Yeah. Oh, icon. No, it's okay. We want that. Okay, scroll down.
Show under hello world. Yep, it's show under hello world, whatever. So this right here is what's called a component.
Oh, I see. So it doesn't have the export statement at the end. One more. Export default.
That one file, which is going to call the components into it. Yeah, this app JS.
And then state level.
So you can have like first
Yep, that's it.
component.
So basically what that's doing, it's saying when we try to import our file locator on, that tells it what it's.
So
basically, like, if you say import state component from dot slash something.
say you're using
So this is constructor execute one.
When you think of Facebook, you can see all so
Sorry,
it's
wait,
a class of a user, and it just is related to like just a little rectangular name, profile picture, maybe what they say. So you
yeah, so basically it just makes the props available to the rest of the function, or the rest of the component. So like say this props, super props makes that.
so name equals
Okay, so it's communicating,
and equals
It's communicating with the class. So
oh, this class.
yeah. So the class contains the constructor function, and then we say super props makes it so that this props actually resolves to the props that you pass into the component when you call it.
Okay, so it's communicating.
Like the other functions inside the class.
And then all if you do something like this. Really,
No, it's okay. Yeah, no problem.
this person says,
It's a little bit confusing at first.
And this is
Yeah, so when I say it's not state here, that basically sets a state for the rest of the component. An initial state means that's what we want the initial, basically, the initial state when it renders. This is what we want the component to have.
oh, good, I already got it.
So you're creating values. Using the const initializer.
So you have.
Yeah, that's where I define them, but that's not where I set them. You have to do this, not state. Like, set the state actually.
Where it's just an empty. You can pass it the props off.
And when
So this also will show up. Yeah, it'll say,
when
if you set it with props, you say.
Oh, right there.
props,
So they're declared as properties of an object. When you deploy the constant initial state where we actually declare the object, we don't have to declare the properties in it separately. So we can just kind of declare the object and its properties in one go.
Basically what happens is when you
So it's
pass that object to the name, you pass that object to the both.
Yeah.
It'll add in.
In this case, we just want the
Yep.
Oh.
So kind of way think about it, it's like initializing a value, initializing an object with those properties inside of it. So like say you wanted to declare array, you want to initialize the value, you would do like array braces, you do const array equals brace and your value inside of it, and brace, and that would return not just an array, but an array values. That's what's like initializing.
But you're not.
So this case it is.
Oh, so I display and then display.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we look down here,
And costs, but if
So let's see, let's look at this form over here. So see where I put default current date? I say this dot say dot date. So that's where I'm setting, there's a, like a date time picker, and I'm using the state to set the default current date. So when you first look, when you first render the form, you get that date time picker and it sets the current date. Instead of just being set to some random date.
It's sort of like
So
it's impossible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you just initialize
That is the real life of the natural.
So I'm using the current date, but if that initial state you put any other date like tomorrow, then it would initialize the date time picker to tomorrow.
So you're basically not changing the value, like that company's not change.
Yeah. So like the thing about React components is they re-render whenever their state changes. So this is saying when the state changes and it renders, set the default component to set the default date to that date. And set the date, default date to that state that date.
You know what? I can send you on my Twitter and watching because it's really good.
Yeah. It's kind of easy to see if you run it. If you clone the repo or the repo latest in that project, you can run it yourself and you can kind of see what it makes more sense the way that they
I mean, I seems like a really nice. Like what like if I want to do something, I want to be able to like use whatever I want. So like but like I can't do that. So for the time I can try. As I try,
Sure.
I feel like I've been asking, like it's just that I feel like
Sorry.
like I'm
It kind of makes sense.
yeah. So
Oh, no, I would not be on.
like I'm exactly break it down and like this goes down.
Okay, so the way to think about state code is like that. It's internal, like data storage area. So anything you want to track of, you want to store inside your state.
Yeah.
So not only storing, you can also read states. So in this case, we're reading from state to set the value of the data.
I think I should just
Sure. Okay. So let's start with the top here. Initial state. It's just a variable. This could be anything you want it to be. Basically, this just means, hey, this is so that when you come back to it later on, you can see the way we want our state to look like. So, hey, this component should have a state that has two properties. One property is input value, which is a string, and the other thing is date, which is just communicating. So that also say, hey, confirm that this is our state. The rest of the property, the rest of the component. Yep, kind of. Yep. Yep. So. Yeah. So this input here. This is just a static text label, so you aren't able to edit its text. But basically, it sets its value, it sets the content of the text box, right? And we're saying pass it to string. So this is a template string. Instead of having a single quote, a double quote, it has backticks.
backticks means basically you can say, hey, instead of doing like a string plus output value plus another string, put everything in backticks, and then you use dollars, curly brace, put your JavaScript variable in there, and it will render that out to the string as you expect it. So it's a little bit more concise than having to do the pluses and strings and making sure you got like spaces after all the variables and everything. So this is basically saying, hey, make a string of these two state values. So this is just where we declare the state. So, but this is not state, but actually has the state. So this is this value you can read from this side state. So another way you can think of, there's an invisible property inside of your component here that is state.
Okay.
And this is that.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a good idea. I hate air conditioning. I mean, like when you're really hot, it's like great.
Yeah.
But then it really, it's. Mm.
This let's say that it doesn't do this is just recreating the state. So this is like similar to object deconstruction. You have like
Being
object
in here all day
Mhm.
and then going to
the
school.
object versus there's a name property versus object.
No, you're right.
So I mean, I shut it off. Then I turned it on this morning because
So that's how you do. And then in order to set state, you use this on set state.
you know,
It's nice. I mean, it was nice before it was hot.
So in order to do that,
it was actually this afternoon at about like 11:30, 12 o'clock. It was like almost
yeah, so this is the
perfect.
problem.
Nice
Yeah.
out, and there
So
was a
this is
slight
example of
breeze. It was like perfect.
Yeah, because we went to walk the dog. We took the dogs to the dog park. And at first it was fine, and then like later it was like, it is really hot. Like Sam and I had to sit a couple of times because it was just really hot.
The daytime
And that's
picker
kind of gross.
calls a function that gives you a value.
I steal these whenever I stay in a hotel
And we're
Oh, I
saying
do it all
this
the
on
time.
set
because
state.
they're handy for your.
And the shampoos, I bring the shampoos to my room.
Yeah, I stopped with the
Taking the value
conditioner because I
from the
never
state.
use the conditioner. That's the only thing that's left when I leave.
So this is just like a,
Make them refill them.
Yeah,
You know,
you could, but I just refilled my. It's never quite right when you put the cap back on. I just refilled one of the other ones, and it came apart in my purse. That was lovely, but it doesn't make a mess, so it's not too bad. But
I need to get another one for the big time. I bought. Was using it. I need to start using it again every day. Or using it.
yes. So this is
Remedy skin.
just like
And then the hospitals.
Mhm.
this is
My
the
clinical.
Mhm.
They have.
is that a
Huh.
And I,
this
because
object
she
that's
Right in a hospital.
So I will, you know, after I got done with my surgeries and Tam's or whatever, I always go to the and that was the best stuff. And then I found out that I could get it on Amazon.
So there's no list.
Oh, wow.
It's like amazing.
Oh, I'll have to try it. Medline?
Medline Remedy Skin.
Do I
Or
go
in
on
this case, maybe
Amazon?
this would be called later on.
Prime. That's my watching stuff.
Oh.
I got a very cheap Instapot from Amazon Prime days. Although I feel very guilty because I know that they exploit workers. I have to say that. Medline, Remedy with algorithm.
Yep. Click on that and it should be.
Oh, default
That's
card
it. Right here.
So this
This one?
is
I get a
a
big huge
daytime
thing
picker
like
that
that.
says, hey,
Oh,
it's a
cool.
new
It's a Prime Day
daytime
deal.
picker.
Let's see what it says.
Display the state as the current select. So like, when you open up like Google Calendar or something, it shows you the current date.
Where'd it go?
Then you have to go pick a different date if you want to.
Clicked
add
on
it. I
to
did.
or something. That's basically saying, hey, so this is the current date when you first open it.
You save an additional 20% on this item at checkout. Oh, that's pretty good.
And I like that it comes in with the pump and everything. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, so, well, one of the this case is
And you don't need a lot.
Yeah, I don't like when it's
And
really.
and it's not,
values
Yeah.
that
Like some people, my mom, at first she was like, it feels greasy. I go, it's not. They'll give it a second. So I said, you just need a little. So she would take a little and she would, oh, it's not.
I'm not sure if that's gonna work because my husband's bank, his debit card got hacked. So we were getting all these charges for San Francisco. He was like, did you take a Lyft? And it was like, there's a $120 charge on a Lyft. I said, $120, where would I go in Syracuse? First of all, I have my car, so that would be weird.
Yeah.
I said, no, it was a class. What are you talking about? Oh, okay, cool.
It's really good stuff.
I'm looking forward to that. And it doesn't have a heavy smell. I would assume. Yeah, I don't like that. Should ask that before I bought it. Yeah.
I'm getting.
There's a lot of.
And I'm also feeling
Yeah.
And I mean, he's really I feel like it's a construct.
So the parent would be whatever,
Like,
property you call.
I don't know, I'm into
Or
like,
you
even
call
like,
it what it
the
is.
file structure.
So if you go back and look at,
I'm like freaking
my,
out. I don't know what
look
I'm
at the
doing.
GitHub.
Yeah, I mean, I do know what I'm doing, but I don't know.
Oh my God.
I have a feeling that's the constant feeling with this.
I just, well, I said to Max,
So.
I didn't do anything wrong here. I can't. Even when I'm home, I'm like, I'll ask a question and I'm like, what's this, right? And they're like, yep. And I'm like, I'm constantly shooting that.
Yeah, you can't overthink it.
Constantly. Like, I know it and I should do it, but then I don't do it because I don't think it's right.
And that wasn't supposed to happen.
He's connected with kids though.
I'm gonna
I paid for it because I was like, I just wanted to like.
Oh, there's this thing. I don't know if anybody was interested in this, but there was an AWS. Let me pull it up. Like they're going over a lot of the developments, like an innovation thing.
Email? Did you get, it's like, it's a.
Yeah, I signed up for it.
In the conference? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't probably, I figured I didn't have time.
I probably don't have time for much of it, but they go over a lot of the stuff Max was talking about, like migrations and.
I can't get it to show up.
Where is it?
I don't know. I tried this at like.
Oh boy.
I might have to make
I am not ever getting a.
Won't regret it.
What's that?
I know. I just gotta figure out who I need to talk to about it. Like.
Just talking about it helps. I mean, I find. I'm talking to Max tonight.
Did you check with him last night?
No, it was tonight. I don't know if he changed it or what. I think must put it in wrong.
I need to.
Then I was hoping to talk to Alice this morning about all my files set up, but she had an appointment. So she changed that one and Max. No, I don't know. I had stuff to ask Max, but. And then Jeremy.
I started writing them down, like what I want to ask the
Right.
person, so that I can, and I did tell Max today, I'm like, I do need to make another one. My links are not working the way that I want. I have, I took and I instead of doing.
But I feel like if I had started in the beginning with like the HTML, I know I would put that all. Am I wrong about that? Like with the way they're doing it now? Oh, here it is, yeah. In-aid online conference. That's what sent me into like, not panic, but Saturday I was like gonna just watch Jeff's videos and just set up all my files.
So this, I changed a lot of my layout, but I had, see, so I have this, right? And it's supposed to be that when you put that, it's going to like the next on whatever it is that. So
It is.
and it's not done.
We got like an hour.
I told them, it's all, you know, they're all separate skills. So I don't
This is just provide sheets.
like everything.
I should talk to Jess.
You know what they really should, and they, milk.
It's got,
Mm.
I mean, I know her. I definitely, I mean, I changed icons.
Mm.
All right, ready to get back to it?
Yes. But first,
You live still?
I just wanted to ask you because I just signed up for free for this AWS Innovate Online Conference. Did anyone else sign up for that? Is that worthwhile? It's like tomorrow and you can just listen in online. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to listen in, it's probably good.
Do they? Good.
I don't know how much relevant stuff it'll be like this class, but I mean.
They had a lot of stuff that Gus went over last week
Yeah.
in their topics like migrations and I forget what
Well,
else. I mean, they have a lot of different topics.
I'm pretty sure that kind of migration is migrating your servers from your business data center into AWS.
Okay.
I don't know if it's necessarily database.
Well, I just thought I'd let everyone know and just ask if it's even worthwhile and maybe I'll just pop it in a little bit tomorrow and see.
I'm sure they'll have they probably have a full schedule online. To see what
Like beginners. Yeah, they do. I didn't look at it that closely. Yeah.
But they'll definitely like pop in there.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about this before I move it out of the way?
No, and they're both on, I took 2 pictures and they're on Slack, so.
Thank you.
I'm a regular photographer. No, I have a Samsung. I got mad at Apple because of the stupid dongle nonsense and you can't plug in headphones. They were like, stop. I just thought that but not plugging in headphones just was like a bridge too far as far as I'm concerned. It was like, we have a perfectly acceptable system and I got to go out and buy nonsense. No.
Yep. The worst part is because everybody
Line in the sand.
copies Apple more or less. All sorts of Android phones are now losing the headphone jack.
But these are the Samsungs?
Yeah.
They shouldn't.
Google, their whole thing was they made fun of Apple for it. They're like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And next, like, you know,
Yep.
I mean, it's like, stop. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Everybody loves headphones or earbuds or something.
Yeah.
If they don't, they take options away. They take all the options you've already paid for away.
Mhm.
So I have no, that
It's a
was,
crying shame, honestly.
it's like Carvel pulled cold press ice cream and they're dead to me. Apple just, I'm done with them now. Except they gave me a Mac, so now I'll use that, but except for this.
Yes, you can.
This I can, yes. I mean, the other things I always got when they did away with, but that was just like, no. Just pushed me a little bit too far in the wrong
Everybody can
direction.
afford them. What are they? How much are those headphones?
AirPods.
I don't know.
$199.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my God, I never even looked because it never even occurred to me.
$200 headphones.
Sure, because your kids don't lose them every
Right.
5 minutes.
Oh yeah, AirPods are even worse. It's still small. You just like bend your ear the wrong way, whoop, into the street.
That's ridiculous.
I hear stories online of people losing them on like subway tracks in New York. It's like, well, it's just gone.
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I need some old iMac software.
Yeah.
Where can I find it?
Okay, so how old an iMac are we talking about?
So, oh gosh, I forget which one it was.
Like original Mac OS 8 or Mac OS X?
Well, here's the problem.
Mhm.
So apparently my installation of Photoshop, which costs a lot of money that day,
Yeah.
it was in my recycling bin.
Oh.
I didn't know that. I had been running Photoshop from the recycling bin the whole time when I emptied my
Oh, no.
bin. Yeah, when I emptied my recycling bin, Photoshop disappeared.
Oh.
So I'm looking for a CD of, I think it's Photoshop 6.
You don't have the CD anymore?
I can't find it. I have everything else. I have my Illustrator,
Mhm.
I have Flash, the only, I have Adobe Go Live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I remember bringing home the floppy disks of
Okay, hold on. Let me mute the mic real quick.
Perfect, maybe. I don't even know.
Old things that I don't have to pay for with a subscription.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I took all this trash to my daughter, because she's like, what do you mean you have Photoshop without a subscription? You know, it's inside my iMac,
She
right?
forgot
I
the
love
time
my
when people
iMac. Yeah, and then one day I was like, oh, let me clear out my garbage.
Telling you, cleaning is always a mistake. I can't tell you.
So you might be able to find it on Adobe's website still. Maybe, well, okay. So I muted the mic. I would never condone this, but have you tried piracy?
I was on Wireframe.
Yeah, right?
I don't know.
Are we in class right
I just know that's the name. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's piracy.com?
No,
Pirate Bay.
Oh, Pirate
they
Bay.
don't advertise.
You gotta, the hardest part is not getting a virus.
Okay.
If you run it on a Mac, you're a little bit safer because usually they're filled with Windows viruses, but
Yeah, true.
unless it's a Mac piece of software, I guess, then they would know.
Okay.
And a lot of times, some of the passwords
Pirate
shows.
Oh, they care. It's some people out there like me. I can't be the only one.
Yeah.
Well,
Right now, I just
And it's saying.
I don't know.
The ISP.
Oh, yeah, you probably can't access the Pirate Bay here.
No, you can't. I know. I just checked.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm for a friend. Many of y'all know people who like keep old software.
hoarders. Hoarders. You're asking us about hoarders.
My friend who has an iMac who's looking for the old installation CD for Photoshop.
Yeah. Photoshop 6 specifically?
But I think it's Photoshop.
Okay. Okay.
And they'll let you, there's a way to keep your 14-day free trial. Look on Reddit.
Okay, so sorry.
Okay.
I learned something.
Yeah, it's really easy to be a pirate. Cool. Okay, I'm muting. No more crying talk. I know. I want them to hear it. No crimes were committed
No
in this.
conspiracies underway.
Fine. Yeah, we're a friend. Okay. So basically, we've shown how to take your wireframe and put some nice boxes around it to show what your React components are going to be. So basically, your assignment for tonight, I'll post this in the Google Classroom. Take maybe one or two of your forms from your wireframe, from your capstone, if you have one. If not, just pick like a website or something that you like the look of, and basically just draw boxes around it to kind of say what forms you think they are, or what components you think would go with which boxes, and if they have state or not. Yeah. Okay, so is everybody pretty clear on how you would, do you think you have a good handle on how you might convert a wireframe into like a bunch of React components?
I have a fine theoretical understanding.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna ask, you have a link to like kind of stuff classes.
Oh yeah, yeah. So like, but you have an idea of like what considerations you could like take in keep in mind when you're drawing those boxes. Say, hey, this area, this is probably a component. You think you can do that?
Mhm.
Cool. Okay. I mean, so tomorrow I can show you how to actually like, you know, take that box and then decide what that component is and like how to actually code it out. We don't have to do that tonight. Let's see, if I can start that tonight. We only got like 45 minutes left in class. If you want, you can jump on the assignment, or I can show you an example of like a code example of how to pass component from or state between two sibling components through the parent.
I would like to see the build out like this with the code.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least one or two components.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to go, we'll start with this one, the most basic one. Okay. So I'm going to create a new create React app project. I will blow this up. Clear. Okay. npx create React app. We'll call this wireframe to React. Okay.
I love how they suggest what you should do next.
It's pretty cool.
I love that.
Okay. So I'm going to open this up in code.
Getting started is always more.
Since we're basically starting from scratch here, just as an example of, I will delete everything from the source folder and start over. I think I got too much. Nope, that's everything. Okay. Okay, so zoom in here. A little too much. I'll make it bigger. Okay, so first thing probably going to start with is probably the biggest higher up component, like your root on the tree. So in this case, the black box. So that's going to be our app component. So we can go into VS Code here. Wrong VS Code window. I can just close this one so I'm not constantly opening it. And we can say new file. And we can just say app.jsx. Cool. So we set up the file like we do any other React file. We say import React from React. We can do class app extends React.component. We can do a render function because that's required. We can just say return a div. Finally, the last thing we have to do, we have to export default app. Oh, sorry, I had to put a return statement in there. And those would be parentheses, because I forgot everything I said yesterday.
Mhm.
Cool, no red square. Yep.
When you say class app extends, do you have to call it app because you named the file app.jsx? Would it cause a problem if you called it something else? Just wanted to know for information's sake.
I don't think it would cause a problem. Like, we can test this real quick. Convention is usually that you name it the same thing, but there's also cases where you'd want to, like, maybe you don't want to create it. We would want to create another component in here. And you just easily, quickly import it into app or insert it into app. Then that wouldn't have to be named app necessarily. It could just be named something else, like small component.
No, that was just something that we should assume that when we say class app, that app is just short for app.jsx.
It's not necessarily short for it. It's just a convention. If this is, you want to name your main component in the file the same thing as the file. Yeah, best practice. Okay, so we got the big black box. Now we can, what's next? Let's say, oh, we need a navbar. So we can create a navbar component. So we create another file. New file called navbar.jsx. I can say that there's a React strap component called navbar. So normally you would import navbar from React strap and then put the navbar component from there in your JSX. But for illustration's purpose, I'll just pretend like we're making our own. So same thing, import React from React. Let's see, class React, oops, extends React.component. And we got to put a render function. And we'll just, again, empty divs. No problems there.
So noticing something here.
Mhm.
So each component gets its own file. Create a file for each component group.
Yes, currently. Yep. There may be cases in the future where you don't want to do that, but for now, that's probably best practice. Because as my boss likes to say, files are cheap, but taking the time to read through a gigantic file name is not very expensive. Okay, so export default navbar. Okay, so now we have, go back to app and we can import it. Import navbar from navbar.jsx. Sorry, I just had like a scare moment. I was, oh, my mic is muted this whole time, but no, we're good. Okay, and then, so usually when you're adding files to your JSX, like HTML, you kind of go by height on the page, so things at the top are higher up than things on the bottom. So navbar goes right at the top. And there we go. So now we have a app component with a navbar component inside of it. So that satisfies the requirement that we have the large black rectangle with this blue rectangle here. So next thing is the green component that makes up the body of our page, basically. So we're going to call this thing, basically what does it have in it? It has our to-do list, right, on the right side. It has our to-do form on the left side. So we'll just call it to-do container. That's the folder, to-dos container.jsx. Something, I wonder if I can just, is there a, no. Okay, there's probably a snippets plugin we could find. Let's see. React snippets. Let's give this a shot. And I really like how VS Code does not take long at all to install things. So we could say, what's a good one here? Let's see if they have an example. Oh, okay, so use IMP. It's a imp. Usually does take a little bit of used to. This is not something I've used before, but this might be handy for you later on, so I'll go through it. So basically, you're supposed to type out the prefix, then this arrow function here. I'm not sure what that stands for. It could be a tab, but when maybe I just have to keep typing. So I typed IMP before, it just gave me import. Let me try reloading the window. IMP, oops, IMP. Oh, maybe it's a comma. It might be a comma. So if I say IMP, comma. I don't know. I'll have to research that. I'll get back to you tomorrow on that. But there are snippets you can install to make typing a little bit faster. So import React from React. And we want to say class. I wonder if CLS is one. Maybe. Class to-dos container extends React component and our render function return blank div. To-dos container. Cool. So that's our to-dos container. We can go back to app. Import to-dos to-dos container from to-dos container. And then under our app bar, we put to-dos container. And then we look back at our wireframe and like, oh, we got something inside to-dos container now. So now we have to make the sub property or the child components of to-dos container. So we got three main ones here. We have the list, we have our form, and we have our show completed task toggle. So we got to make those. We'll create 3 files real quick. We'll say to-dos form JSX. We'll say to-dos list .jsx. And we'll say to-dos. We'll call this a filter because it's really like a visibility filter. We say what we want to filter for. Either we filter for no completed tasks, or we filter for all completed tasks regardless of, or we filter for all tasks regardless of completion status. So just call it filter. Then I'm just copy and paste everything into here, like a nav bar. Something's going on.
Somebody's not happy.
Somebody's always unhappy. All right, so I'll paste this in here.
Did someone do something?
Oh.
Nice.
Okay.
He's walking. What's the guy sitting on the steps? He's down outside. I got, yeah, I don't know.
Is it the guy across the street yelling?
Oh, no, touching. It's right down the street. He was sitting on the steps earlier.
And then, yeah, we just got to change our names here.
But the high
So
school.
it's filter.
He would just stand outside of our building and yell at like a statue. Because we're like
It was pissing him off.
stop there.
Or why won't you look at me? Could be either.
Okay, so we got those three components now kind of blocked out. So now because to-dos form and to-dos list aren't direct children of app, they're direct children of to-dos container, we have to import them into to-dos container. So let's see, import to-dos filter from /filter container. Sorry, to-dos filter. Import to-dos list. And import to-dos form. Okay. Now inside our divs, we would just put to-dos filter. Let's put these left to right. So to-dos form, to-dos list. Yep, to-dos. Oh, sorry, not to-dos list. To-dos. Yep, filter. Thank you. Cool.
You still have lists.
Yeah.
See that.
Cool.
But you said left to right. Isn't it form, list, and then?
Nope, because the filter is above the list.
So what?
Oh, in the drawing?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, in the drawing, okay. I thought you meant left to right from the tab.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So that's at a high level.
So the to-do container was the green box,
Yes.
and then the children are the blue block. light blue light blue boxes? I
Yeah.
can't. Okay.
Yep. So these three, this light blue box, this light blue box, and
Got
then
it.
these two.
Okay.
Yep. So we can also create, let's see. So for to-dos lists, or sorry, to-dos form, I have another green box right inside the this blue box here to represent this button. You could technically make that one component if you wanted, or that would just have an if statement. So if one state is met, then it shows the button. If the other state is met, then it shows the filter. And then that button and filter could be defined on the page itself, or all inside one component rather. Or you can separate that out so you have your to-dos form component, and then if one state, then it imports the button component, and if the other state, it imports the form part of that component. So it's really just up to you. If it gets too long, you might want to break it down to separate components, but once you get to like a level like this, where it's only like maybe a few components being shown inside it, then you're probably pretty good to just make a single file. Yep. Okay. So let's see.
So, we working on now the button.
Yeah. So let's see. To-dos filter. This one. Or, sorry, to-dos form. Yeah. So we've kind of reached the bottom of this. I'm going to, like I was saying, I will break those down to separate forms. So let's create. So because we're going to create a separate form component, I'm going to rename this to-dos form container.
Can you start to, like, once you get to that many files, can you start to add folders and new files and all other files, like when you're importing and everything?
Yeah. So let's see. I can show that real quick. So a convention I like to use, I will create a folder, a subfolder inside of source called components. So I remember how to create a folder. Then I'll drag all of my components in there. So then something that's neat you can do with this. So currently we have them all in components. So you could, instead of doing / something, you could just say / component / component name. It'll clean up your source folder a little bit, so you don't have to look at the components all the time. But another thing you can do is if you don't want to have so many separate, like this one, we have, not the great one, to-dos container. We have these three components we're importing. We can actually make that one import if we create a index.js file in here. Then inside index.js, we export all our components. So let's say we import app from .app. Actually, I wonder if we can just do export. I don't know if I can do that one line. Okay. Import app from app. Then we do import navbar from navbar. Import to-dos container from to-dos container. Import to-dos form from to-dos form. Import to-dos, what we do, to-dos filter from to-dos filter. And finally, import to-dos list from /to-dos list.
Why are you doing that?
So now at the very end, I can say export const, or I don't even need that. I wonder if I can just do export, and then here can say app, navbar, to-dos container, to-dos form, to-dos filter, to-dos list. So what this is a index file with all the components that makes it so instead of having to import our apps from each separate file, we can now import everything directly from index. So we only have to make one import statement. So what that look like, if we look at to-dos container, we have these three. Because we've exported everything, we can just say import. I'll talk about the syntax in a little bit. To-do filter, or let's say to-dos filter, to-dos form, and to-dos list from components. That's slash components. Mhm.
After you do that line, instead of getting rid of the code that you have, can you just comment that out?
Yeah.
And just write that this you can do if you I don't know what you just said. You can do it, you just put up there or you can do this code.
Just include it in index.js.
So let's see, line 7, or let's see, in this case, 8 through 10 are replaced by lines 2 through 6, or 2 through 5 rather. Then up here, put, well, this is going to change the line number, so I should have waited, but it's okay. Let's see, this require this, if you create, index.js file that imports and exports all your modules, you can just import them from /index. So the reason why I have to import them from /index here is because we're inside the same file name, or inside the same folder as index.js. Oh yeah, sorry. I will add this code to GitHub as well, but yep. Mm-hmm. So if I was to create a component outside of this for some reason, for example, say we want to have our index.js file like we have in Create React app that actually tells it where to render. Let's say I'll just create a sample. So, say test.jsx. We can do the same thing, but we can import from components. So import, let's say, app from /components.
It's like
So that's a folder name, right? That's not a file name. When you give import a folder name, it will look inside for an index.js file. If it finds one, it just returns the module from that instead. Yeah, so this is equivalent to saying, a comment. This is equivalent to import app from /components index. Yep, and then we put the index file inside of it. And because this import, the module loader knows to say, hey, just look for a default folder or default module file named index, we can exclude it from our import statement. Oh, because I've turned that off. Here, sorry. I can turn that on. Is it Control Z? Alt C? There it is. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good. Generally, yeah, you would, if you're going to do this for your own wireframes, you want to make your boxes, and then you want to make each of these boxes a file, essentially, and that becomes the component for that component file for that box. Yep. If it's helpful to you, you can even make arrows on here and say, okay, so create a text file. We can say app.jsx. Well, you can point to create an arrow from this line to here.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
And then we can create another text box. And we'll say this one is navbar. R.jsx. Try another arrow. Like that. So if you say, you leave off at some point and you say, okay, I got to come back to this. I want to edit this section of my app. What am I looking for? And you say, oh, I'm looking for, I want to edit this image. You can say, oh, looking for navbar.jsx. Yep.
Cool.
All right. Sorry? Yeah. Okay.
Can we see what it looks like so far?
Just the app?
Yeah, just what you've coded.
Yeah. So actually, to get these to show, we have to add another. We have to add an index.js file in here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll copy that. Source index.js, and you'll have to do this too for your. You'll have to do this for your capstones. That's what I'm thinking of. If you choose to use Create React App, you can probably just honestly, instead of deleting everything from source, you just delete the few JSX files and you leave index.js in there. Let's see. So if I open up not that projects, hello world, source, index.js, we can just simply copy. Not that one, but this one. Nice. So let's say we don't have that file anymore. We don't have this file anymore. So we don't need this stuff on the end. That's not really stuff you'll need to reference later on. That's just stuff we really don't need anymore. And then remember, because we put everything in components, we can say imp./components. And we have to wrap this in curly braces. Oh, that's one thing I can talk about before we wrap. Okay, so let's run this. Let's see, open up a terminal. Or npm start. Vector string, frozen components, we got an object. Oh. View container. Default and named inputs. Don't think I did that. Let's try and comment it out of app real quick and see if that doesn't break anything. So these are all blank because we only put blank divs in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at yeah, you know. That's really unhelpful. Let's see, inspector console. Okay, you know, I'm just going to throw some text in there real quick because can't find how to resize that. So let's say, let's see, text from app. Say, the problem is I just didn't save any of these files. Anyway, then we go to navbar, we can say text from navbar. I'll try to throw that back in real quick. Text from use container. Text from to-dos form. Text from to-dos list. Finally, text from to-dos filter. Look back at this. There we go. So yeah, that's our hierarchy.
Okay.
So we have app at the top, then navbar, then to-dos container, and then inside a to-dos container we have to-dos form, filter, and list. And if I could just get this to blow up a little bit. Let's see, do I have a screen magnifier? Well, kind of. Oh, thank you. Just didn't even see that entirely. Up that to 4. Cool. It's okay. I don't need to see. It's more important to me that you all see.
Aw.
Okay, so we have the hierarchy, right? So we have our app component at the top, we have our div, we have our navbar inside that, then we have our to-dos container, and then we have our to-dos form, to-dos filter, and to-dos list, which are all siblings inside of to-dos container. Yeah. So demonstrates that the hierarchy does in fact work. If we use something like React Strap, that would also work better because we can like create rows and containers and such to show where exactly on the page stuff would be going.
Okay.
So when we get in tomorrow, we can start doing
Okay.
So how can we begin learning about React Strap? Is there a website?
that. Yeah. So I will paste the documentation. It's pretty simple to learn. I say that. I promise it's not that bad. You might have been right about this. Okay, access brings us to universal access, which brings us to here, and then we go to Zoom. We turn it off. Okay. We're back.
There when we need it.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, the one last thing I want to cover. Did somebody else ask me to cover something before I just completely forgot about them?
Oh, I believe it was components and properties, but like I got that because properties are like the whatever you pass on to components.
Exactly. Cool. And we'll go over that more tomorrow as we start building out the to-dos app. So bring any questions we have to that, and then any questions you have to that, and then we can answer them then. So this syntax here, if we look at, let's see, where did I do that? form container or to-dos container. So we do import, and then we do this curly brace with variable names inside of it, like a object. So this is called Object Deconstruction. Basically, it lets you take properties from an object and make them their own separate variable. So you don't have to say, normally to access properties of an object, right? So an object looks like const object equals key and a value. Yeah. So what that basically does is it makes doing this kind of syntax here, makes all the keys their own separate variables. So instead of doing object.key and getting the value that way, you can just say key and you get the value. So it makes it a little bit nicer to use, but then it also keeps clarity of knowing where that variable is coming from, because it's not really like declared anywhere else. It's just here inside the object deconstruction. Yeah. You don't have to worry about that too much. There'll come a time when you're like, oh, I hate calling this not something. And that's when you'll know, hey, it's time to use object deconstruction. But it's there when you need it. Okay. Any questions before we wrap? All right. Cool. So again, Simon, take a couple of your wireframes from your capstone, do the boxes around them in Google Drawings or some other tool, and then just start building out the React component files for them. All right. Good work tonight, everybody.
That was a really good class. That really, a lot of pieces fell into place.
Good. I'm glad. I know yesterday was hard, and I was trying to get through like all the vocabulary before we really got into the deep stuff. So, I mean, at least you kind of heard of terms now, but it doesn't make for a very exciting class.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's just the past few weeks have been like swirling around, so it's really helpful.
Good.
Everything we've done, like in the past, like since December.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I love React. I use it every day as much as I can. Makes things really nice. I think of the olden ways I used to do stuff. I'm like, oh, I hate those days now. React saves me. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll end here tonight, remote folks. See you all tomorrow.